As you know, I'm heading out on a 3-month sabbatical in two weeks from tomorrow, but who's counting? So I just hit 10 years at the church, and we have an amazing team of leaders and elders, and they were gracious and over the top, extravagant, generous with me, and gave me 3 months to kind of have a time of restoration and hopefully get my soul back. I've been honest with you guys over the last few months that I'm really burned out. I'm in probably the most unhealthy place I've been in a long time, just emotionally. And a lot of that, probably most of it, is just 10 years of church planning catching up with me, which is a great thing, but there is such a thing as too much of a good thing, right? And so some of it's just that. But then this last year in particular has been really challenging for me kind of internally as I've been wrestling with who I am and what God's called me to. And part of that's just busyness. I've been teaching 4 to 5 times on a weekend at 2 different churches in 2 very different contexts, one suburban and one urban. I've been leading Bridgetown, which is our church in the city, and then also semi-leading our family of churches, kind of responsible for the overall direction of where we're going as a family. I've also been going to seminary. I'm just about to graduate with my master's degree. I'm about to turn my 3rd book in this Thursday. And we adopted a child, and I'm trying to be a decent husband and not doing that great of a job at it lately, and a father and a healthy human being, and so it's just too much. And so part of it's just that, but I think this last year has been really challenging for me because it's been illuminating as I've been learning who I am. I'm 33, and so I'm just at that age. I feel like I'm having a midlife crisis at 33, which I think long-term will be good. Right now it's lame and there's no gold medallion, so. But I really want to get both my ears pierced, and the only thing stopping me is my wife. So I'm in that place, all right? We'll see what happens on sabbatical, all right? I'm like, I want more tattoos and 2 earrings, and my wife is standing in between me and the door. So I'm having this time, and I read this great book over the last few months called Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer. It's a few decades old. He's this Quaker kind of mystic educator. We bought a bunch of copies, and they're for sale out in the foyer if you want to give it a read. It's short and easy, and it's a book on calling, on who you are and what God's made you to do. And he makes this great point that one of the ways we know what our calling in life is by embracing both our potential and our limitations. And there's all sorts of talk in the church and in culture at large about embracing your potential. What's your gifting? What's your talent? What's your education? What are you good at? What can you do for the world? And that's fantastic. But we also need to have a conversation around our limitations. What can't you do? What are you bad at? What are you no good at all? What is there not grace for in your life? And we need to realize that both our potential and our limitations are really a gift from God and a signpost pointing us deep into the heart of our vocation, of our calling. So for me, this last year has forced me to kind of stare my limitations in the face and realize that a chunk of what I'm doing is actually, I very much believe, outside of God's calling on my life. So I've learned over the last few years that I don't think I'm called by God to lead a giant organization. The way I'm wired, I'm kind of vision teaching guy. I'm an introvert. I love to be alone and read and think and study and write, prepare. I love to travel and get glimpse into the kingdom of God and what God is stirring up around America and around the West, and then bring that back home. And that's really what I feel called to, and I feel called to do that in the city. I have, ever since I was in high school, ever since I first got my driver's license and had worked 2 jobs one summer and bought a 1977 Volkswagen bus, and so there's a history there. Let's just move on from it. And ever since then, I've been driving into the city and walking up and down the streets, and my heart has just kind of been bleeding for the urban core of Portland in particular. Some of you know that I was actually never supposed to stay at what's now called Westside, at the time was called Solid Rock, for more than 2 years. I was supposed to stay here for 2 years. We were living in the Pearl District and help get the church up and running and then go out as the first church plant. That was 10 years ago. So there's been kind of this ache in my heart for the last decade, this thing in me that I just can't shake and I just can't let go of. Plus, on top of all of that, me aside, we as a family have been on this journey from kind of a multi-site church. If you remember the language a few years ago of 1 church in 2 locations, and then it was 1 church in 3 locations. And we've been kind of slowly but surely evolving away from that, which we all feel great about, to what we now call a family of churches. And the difference is basically that a multi-site church is a little bit more personality-based, and it's more of a franchise. It's more you get the exact same thing everywhere you go. We're as a family of churches, the same family, same DNA, like same last name, Comer, but obviously my dad and I are very different. So we don't really look that much alike, but I look like mom, so how's that? But we have there's parts of us that are very, very similar and parts of us that are very, very different because we're separated by age and geography, and that's healthy, that's a good thing. And so in the same way, we want to give our churches freedom contextualized to be the people of Jesus in different parts of the city in different ways, all the while having the exact same kind of DNA. And so this whole thing, the heart behind all of it is incarnation, being a church for that part of the city. But that has created over the last year or two a weird sort of pathology in me where I don't, and this is me being brutally honest, I don't actually believe anymore in what I do every weekend. In living in one part of the city, driving out here and teaching, and then driving downtown and teaching again on Sunday night, week in and week out. I don't think it's sin, like I'm teaching the Bible, I'm not like killing people, but it's not congruent with what I believe the church should be. I very much believe that this church, that you need leadership who lives in this part of the city and eats it up, who feels called to see the kingdom of God come to Tigard, Beaverton, and the west side of Greater Portland, who just wants to live here and share its joy and share its pain and sit in its traffic and watch it and just be here and be a part of it and love it from the ground up. And Bridgetown needs the exact same thing. And so a few months ago, early in the year, I came back from a trip to England. England for me is basically what summer camp is for middle schoolers. England is for me. It's just more expensive, all right? And I came back and I just had this real profound encounter with the Holy Spirit. My wife was with me. We were celebrating our anniversary. And I came back and I asked the central elders if after my sabbatical I could be released to just lead Bridgetown. Not to leave our city or to leave our family of churches, but just to lead Bridgetown. And we have an amazing team of leaders. Both the Westside elders and our central elders, which we'll talk more about in a minute, are just amazing. They were gracious and generous and understanding and filled with so much wisdom to help me navigate this over the last few months. But in the end, they said yes. So the announcement, I guess, on my part is that when I come back in September, I will no longer be in the regular teaching rotation for Westside. Hopefully I'll get invited out as a guest, but that's not up to me. But I will come if I'm invited. And I will no longer be the senior leader overseeing our family of churches. Now, none of this is surprising to a lot of you. Some of you kind of have seen this coming. You know our heart. This is the natural outworking of our vision. You know my heart. You know what's been kind of in there for years and years and years. So some of it maybe is surprising to you. For others of you, it's like, yeah, old news. I knew that was coming. But that does raise all sorts of questions about Westside and who is going to lead Westside forward. Dad?
So you're tossing the ball to me.
It's to you.
All right. And by the way,
was that a sports analogy?
I'm going to invite you back because I like
you.
Okay. So believing, I was part of the central elder team, believing as we wrestle with this before the Lord, this is God's will for John Mark. Then, of course, it raises a huge question for the West Side. Who then is God calling to lead the West Side? And so we entered into a season, and we're kind of summing up what's been going on for a couple months here. We entered a season as West Side elders of praying, doing some fasting, seeking counsel. And one thing became clear, just unanimous pretty quickly and remained consistent as we felt God was saying, the person that's to lead the West Side is already here as part of our A Jesus Church family. We felt that we were not supposed to put out a call and start asking for resumes and, findapastor.com. I don't know if there might be one of those. Don't go there. Anyway.
There is.
There is? That's terrible. Anyway. And so as we wrestled with this, we gave some serious thought to me stepping back into this lead pastor role. But as Diana and I started praying about that, especially during the weekend of the snowstorm, remember that? I'm not like him. He's an introvert. Like, I have to chain myself to be alone for 3 hours, and then I want to go talk to all of you. Anyway, but the snowstorm pinned me down. And God really confirmed some things in my heart and my wife's heart. We love this church. I'm speaking on behalf of Diane and me. We love this church. We planted it along with John Mark and some of you who are here today. And my wife and I say, we feel like nobody loves you guys more than we do except Jesus. Now Jesus does love us all more, but maybe some of you love this church as much as we do, but we love it. We do not feel called away. During that snowstorm, though, God confirmed in our hearts that in this next season, we're being called to a more apostolic role, specifically to pastors and parents. More on that in a bit. So the elders clearly not only confirmed John Mark's calling, but they confirmed that, yes, this is what we see you and Diane doing in this next season. And so what do we do next? The Lord says, don't look outside. And I'm saying to the guys, we don't feel that we're supposed to take it back. We knew we were called to plant it, but we don't feel the same peace that we're to sort of restart it, replant it. And that's kind of what needs to happen here. I mean, we've started 2 churches, Bridgetown, Sunset, hundreds of solid, great leaders have gone out, and those churches are healthy, and it's time for the Westside to come back together as we reach this part of the city, and we need aggressive leadership. And then we gave some serious thought for a while to a team. Myself, Tim McDonald, Ian Nelson, and Todd Newell kind of leading it along with our other pastors, but we didn't feel total peace about that. So we continued to wrestle, we continued to listen, we continued to pray, and that's the kind of men you have leading this church under the leadership of Jesus. And then, we still didn't have the answer. Then a few weeks ago, and some of you were here that day, Dominic Doan was here, visiting from Raleigh. Jamark had just asked him a couple months ago, hey, when can you come out and give us an update on how Emmaus is doing and preach for us? And so Dominic was here that weekend, and I sat in the 8 o'clock gathering, and not just me, but as he was up here teaching, something happened in our hearts. We feel that God began to stir our hearts and open our eyes that this was the missing piece, because we came to the conclusion that, yes, this is a team. We have plurality of elders. We have a team of people leading, but there needs to be a point person. I'm a basketball guy. You need a point guard running the team. Go Spurs. But anyway.
Is that kind of like a lead singer?
No. Well, yeah,
No?
I guess so. But try a sports analogy. It works. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, even Evan gave a sports analogy a couple weeks ago. We good job, Evan.
It was probably soccer or something European.
Basketball. We believe in team. We needed a point guard. And so as Dominic was preaching, we just felt this is it. God is, we believe, maybe calling him. The idea began to blossom. Maybe he's calling him to come be part of this team, but lead us in the point position. So we asked Dominic to extend his stay. We had some more time of praying and seeking counsel and wrestling together, and we came to complete peace. And so we, as the Westside elders, issued a call to Dominic to come join us as Westside lead/teaching pastor. He spent some time with the Lord and his wife praying about it, and he's accepted that call, and we're excited about that. So. I kind of thought you would react that way. But it doesn't mean we don't love you, because
okay.
we want you back.
They're clapping, that's so sad.
But these are big shoes to fill. And Dominic is mature. I think he's late 30s, 38, I think, or so. It's a master's degree from Oxford. He knows the scriptures. He's experienced in ministry. I mean, God put him in Vanuatu in the desert, so to speak, the South Pacific desert, for years studying the scriptures. He pastored a church in Maui for about 8 years or so, and the church grew from 50 to 500. He knows the Lord. His marriage is solid, and we believe in his calling. And so when God made it clear to us, it was really an easy decision. What most of you don't know is we almost didn't send him to Raleigh, because he was so well connecting here. You guys loved him so much when he spoke. He was so well loved. We almost didn't send him. Tim McDonald is going to serve kind of as a close second to Dominic, leading our staff. I'm going to continue to serve here as a Westside pastor on staff. I'll still preach occasionally as part of the teaching team, but we'll spend more time focusing on our intentional parents ministry. I told you we feel called to pastors and parents. Doors are opening for my wife and me to do pastors' conferences, and specifically this intentional. We haven't even got the word out that we're doing it. We have 6 more conferences happening this year, and our elders are saying we want to enfold the intentional parents ministry into the West Side, because we're a family church. I asked Peter, our children's director, we have 600 to 650 kids here on a Sunday, and hundreds of families. And so we want to enfold that into the West Side. And then our church has been blessed by God. We're blessed to be a blessing. And they want to send my wife and I out when doors open. But we're going to do that out of the West Side. And periodically we'll be away doing a conference like next week in Eugene. But we'll be here a ton of the time because doors are opening. Now, I will have more time to mentor our younger pastors and also parents. Ian Nelson, whom you love to pieces, will continue to be part of the Westside teaching team, but he will no longer lead the Westside teaching team because Dominic will come and do that. He's very similar gifts as John Mark does. Ian is going to step back into his former role as college pastor, but not just that, more broadly, he's the one that watches over all the details of our Westside gatherings, pulling everything together. We're going to ask him to keep doing that, along with Evan Wickham, who isn't going anywhere, right? His no plans. Yeah, I know you'd like that. And so Ian will still be here, I will still be here, Tim will still be here, Evan will still be here. But you guys are smart. And John Mark and I know what most of you are thinking right now, because it's what we were wrestled with. What about Raleigh? Because we believed if this was God's will, that God was calling Dominic here, then God was going to care for Raleigh. And so Tim McDonald, the reason the chair is empty here is he's in Raleigh right now, and they are hearing this announcement in Raleigh. Time difference, but today as you're hearing it here. And so Tim recorded something on video to share the Raleigh piece, and so we're going to go to that right now. So here's Tim.
Hey everybody, sorry I can't be there today on this important day with this fantastic announcement, but I'm actually out in Raleigh right now in North Carolina with the Emmaus crew. We're rolling out a lot of this story to them right now as well. The family has been told about this earlier in the week, but we're now talking to the whole church, and I get a chance to stand beside Dom and really kind of talk through the vision of all that's been happening with the Jesus Church family over the course of the last months. I am super excited about the fact that Dom is going to be coming out to be our lead pastor, and I'm excited about the idea of working with him, almost co-pastoring with him to work and focus on the gathering function, while I'm focusing on the scattering function, the two of us really working together to shape a vision for our church and leading it into the next 10 years or beyond, and the exciting things that God has planned for us. Now, you guys are probably wondering what's happening with Emmaus and how are we going to look to take care of that. Well, it's an incredible story and not one that we have all the time for right now, but one of the big pieces of it is when we sent out Emmaus, we actually sent out Dom and Tony. Many of you guys will have had a chance to meet Tony Pilata. He's just a fantastic leader, a guy that not only leading worship, but also has a great gift with working with people and working with new leaders. And early in the process, both Dom and Tony were partnering together in leading the Emmaus family forward. And so over the course of the last few months, as Dom has been wrestling and hearing from the Lord, and we've been interacting with him and his transition to come and be a part of Westside, Tony actually has been raising up to a sense of a desire, to feeling that Jesus is calling him to lead Emmaus. And so with Tony running the lead and really with a heart for the missional and as a worship leader and a great leader of people, we're now bringing in Brian Fowler, a friend of theirs, who's going to come alongside Tony as a lead teaching pastor and just a great guy to pastor and love new people who are coming into the family and to be able to walk alongside. And really Brian has got an incredible vision for where God wants to take the church next. Now, it's really important that you guys understand how much we love Emmaus. We've been looking at trying to find the right way to care for this community as we make this transition. And so honestly, even as we were wrestling with the elders here, I was a part of the elder team with Emmaus, wrestling with them to make the right decision from the right time, because Emmaus is still a part of our family. And if anything, now with Dom coming out to help lead us forward at the West Side, we now see that there's going to be an even stronger link to this church at North Carolina. We love Emmaus, and we're really excited about what God's got planned for the future. And so we're just thankful. We appreciate your prayers. I know that they'd be appreciating your prayers even right now as you guys are listening to this video. For us, as we're talking to this community here and really helping pastor them through this whole transition.
We actually have Brian Fowler and his incredible wife, Shannon, here. Why don't you guys stand up real fast? They're here. Yeah. And we're so happy to have you guys. Thanks for being here. Brian's going to spend, I think, about a month or so, right? Where you guys will kind of hang with us here and we'll kind of like deluge, download on you guys and then send you out. So we're really excited about that. And Dom will be here teaching next weekend, correct?
We're going to welcome him, pray over him. He's going to preach.
Yep, so he'll be here. We'll welcome him, all that kind of stuff. Don't miss next weekend, and then should be moved here by end of summer, hopefully July, August, somewhere in there. Yeah. So all of that, to kind of start wrapping things up, raises one last question, and that is simply who will lead our family of churches. And the nice thing is I'm not going anywhere. Dad's not going anywhere. Our roles are very much changing, but we're not leaving. And we are a family of churches, and that really is a massive help in a time like this. So if you're curious what exactly that looks like, well, each church has its own elders, its own deacons, its own staff, its own leadership team who all lives in that part of the city. That's true of Westside, it's true of Bridgetown, it's true of Sunset. And then on top of that, we have a crew of central elders that is made up of the lead pastor of each church, and then one non-paid elder from each church, and Tim McDonald as well, who kind of oversee the direction and kind of keep the DNA guardrail for each of our 3 churches. And we hope, God willing, to plant more, 4, 5, 6. We have a crew of people that are dying to plant in Vancouver, up north. We would love to plant in southeast and northeast Portland eventually. I know you guys have had a lot of conversations about planting in Sherwood, Tualatin. So there's a heart to continue to take the church forward and to continue church planting. And Tim McDonald is actually going to take over that kind of, it's not a ton of time because each church is so healthy at a local level. We're going to push out most of the leadership to a local level. And then Tim McDonald is going to kind of oversee our family of churches, our central elder team. I'll continue to sit on it. I'll continue to speak into it. I just won't be the boss anymore. So Tim was my boss, and now, no, I was Tim's boss, and now he's going to be mine, which is going to be really fun. But luckily, Tim is one of my closest friends, and so is Dom. He was a friend before he ever came here. That's one of the reasons we invited him. So to see these 2 men, Dom and Tim, lead together this church that I was privileged to be a part of for a decade is one of the great joys of my life. And I absolutely believe that you are not in good hands, you're in fantastic hands. I believe in both of these men so much. That said, 2 things that I just want to say before I turn over the mic for the last time. Don't clap for that part. Don't clap for that part.
Not the last time.
First thing I want to say is just thank you. Thank you for letting me lead you. Thank you for letting me grow up on this stage. Thank you for putting up. I was 23 when we started. Thank you for putting up with all of my youth and immaturity. Some of you are thinking it's not gone away. I'm semi-aware of that. Thank you, though, for your patience with me. Thank you for the last few years through the massive tectonic shift to around missional communities that you've been up for it, and you kind of walked through that as tumultuous as it has been at times, and you're still here, and you're still on board. And I just want to say I love you, and being a part of this family. And this really, I honestly believe that Westside is a move of God. Being a part of this over the last decade of my life, I'm sure will go down whenever I die, whatever that day is, I'm sure this will go down as one of the highlights of my life that I will look back to for decade after decade, God willing, and just thank God for. And so thank you so much. And then the next thing I want to say, and I have permission for this next part from your Westside elders, I promise, is that I'm really excited about this next season for my family, but also for Bridgetown. My family and I are moving. We just rented an old house, walking distance from Bridgetown. We're going to walk to church, preach, walk home. We're really excited about that. And Bridgetown, God willing, is about to sign a lease on a new location where we can do Sunday mornings. Right now, we can only do Sunday nights at First Baptist. And so we're going to start that, God willing, in September when we come back. And I just think for us, this is just a kind of a real key moment in the life of our church. And if you live in the city, but you come out here because you're not able to make Sunday nights work, which I know is a small but significant number of you, then obviously we want to invite you to come out on Sunday mornings once we get that up and running. But then also, if you don't live in the city, but you have a heart for it. Maybe you work there, maybe you do culture there, maybe you sneak in every chance you can to get a good cup of coffee, or whatever it is, but you have some kind of a resonance in your heart with the city, then on behalf of the Bridgetown elders and with the permission of the Westside elders, we would like to just issue a call for you to seriously think and pray about moving into the city and joining our church. Our church is incredibly young, as is the demographic of the city. So an urban center is usually college students, 20-somethings, single young professionals, maybe some young couples, and then kind of empty nesters with money. And there's not a lot of middle class. There's not a lot of families. And Portland, it is very much possible to raise a family as a middle class family in the city. It's not New York. It's not San Francisco. But it is a lifestyle change. It's higher rent, more property taxes for way less square feet, But you get to walk everywhere, which is awesome. And so our church is very much reflective of that, at least for the front. We have tons of 20-somethings, 70% of the church is single. We have a massive number of young professionals, but we have this glaring lack of the color gray from the top of the head up. We just massively have a need for that, right? And so we are honestly praying to God that we want to mostly grow through people coming to faith in Jesus, but we are also praying to God for families and for those in particular, whatever age and up, 40 and up, with some gray hair, theoretically, metaphorically, with some maturity, to come and weigh down our church in the good sense of that word, to come and just bring a life and a vitality, to be mom, dad, to parent, to mentor, to shape culture in the city. And so if there's any resonance at all in your heart with the vision of Bridgetown and with the city at all, then we would love to have you over the next few months to seriously think and pray about ending your lease or selling your house and moving into a much smaller place and becoming a part of our church. And we very much want to be an incarnational church, so we want people who are part of our church to live in the city. It's why my family and I, we live kind of on the edge of Portland, but we're moving right into the thick of it. We very much believe that Jesus' model, if you think about Jesus, God came to humanity as a what? As a human. And he came to first century Israel as a first century Jew, and he came to Judaism as a Jewish rabbi. This is this idea of incarnation. And so we very much believe that if Jesus were to come today, he would come to Tigard as a suburbanite, and he would come to the city, to Portland, as a Portlander. He'd show up here in a minivan, and he'd ride his bicycle to Bridgetown, all right? So we very much believe, not a minivan? I'd like to think that about Jesus too. Prius. So,
Mini Cooper.
Prius. Mini Cooper, no,
Yeah.
Prius. Anyway, probably he would walk everywhere, knowing Jesus. And anyway, the heart behind that is we so want to be a people that don't just worship in a part of the city, but worship all week long in a part of the city. Through our job, through our career, through our vocation, through community, through how we do life, through our web of relationships, through our neighborhood. To be Jesus people in the city and to shape the culture from the inside out, to share the city's pain, its public school system, its immorality, its spiritual oppression, and its joy. It's fantastic coffee. It's really good food. It's livability. And so that's kind of who we want to be as we follow Jesus forward in the city as a part of this larger family. So I know I'm probably talking to about 3 people right now, but would the 3 of you over the summer just think and pray about being a part of what God is doing? And that said, thank you so much, and I think you're going to pray over me, right?
We are.
And is my wife here? Babe, are you here somewhere? Yeah, you are.
Tammy, get up here,
Come on
sweetheart.
up. I think we're going to pray for
Did
both
you
of
bring
us.
my great-grandkids around? I want to see them. By the way, you don't have to go downtown for, did I say 8?
Great-grandkids? What did you do now?
My grandkids who are great. You don't have to go downtown for good coffee, just go to Pete's. That's where I went today. All right. We're having our Westside elders up here, as many who are here in this gathering, and any Bridgetown elders. And, we so believe this is God's will for John Mark, and we walk by faith. God continues to move through our A Jesus Church family of churches. The church is a movement, and we're just blessed to be in a place where he's moving. So we want to pray over John Mark and Tammy and bless them and send them out with joy. And also, we want to ask God to use them and the rest of the Bridgetown team to reach many, many people with the gospel that we will never reach out here.